Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Zabel, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. Hello children, and welcome back to Children's Bible Stories. Today we're going to be doing an Apocrypha story. We're going to be doing the story of the martyrdom of Saint Peter. So, according to church tradition, both Saints Peter and Saint Paul were executed during the reign of Caesar Nero. So in the year 64 AD, there was this big fire of Rome. And many people believed that Nero had actually set the city of Rome on fire so that he could rebuild it in his own glory. But to throw off suspicion, Nero blamed all the Christians for the fire. And so many Christians were rounded up and killed and punished because Nero blamed the fire on them. And during that time, both St. Peter and St. Paul would be executed. St. Paul was executed by beheading, so the soldiers killed him. As for Peter, however, his story is a little bit different. Peter would be crucified, but in a way very different to the crucifixion of Jesus. So the story of Peter's death comes from numerous different church fathers. There is no just one big story of Peter's death. The different church fathers have told little bits here and there about Peter, and so we have to try and piece the story of Peter's death together from a number of different church fathers. Now, according to tradition, however, so Peter and his wife were both arrested and were imprisoned in Rome. Some stories talk about how they were locked in a prison with a whole bunch of other prisoners for about 40 days, and it was a prison that was underground, and it was so dark that you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face, but that while in prison there, Peter converted very many of the prisoners to Christianity. On the day of Peter's death, first, Peter's wife was taken out and she was executed first. And according to tradition, Peter somehow managed to escape his arrest and he was running out of the city. And according to the tradition, as Peter was leaving the city, Jesus met him at the city gates. "Lord, what are you doing here?" And Jesus says, "I have come to be crucified again." Now, Jesus didn't mean that he was actually going to be crucified. This was Jesus' way of telling Peter that this was the time that he was going to die, and that Peter had to return and be crucified. And that when Jesus said he was going to be crucified again, he meant he was going to be crucified through Peter, because as Christians, we become one with Christ, and God suffers with us. And so when we die, Jesus is with us in our suffering. And so Peter went back and he was going to be crucified. Now we know in the Gospel of John that Jesus foretold that Peter would die by having his hands stretched out. And that is what happened during crucifixion. According to church tradition, when it came time for Peter to be crucified, he said to the soldiers, could they please turn the cross upside down, because Peter did not feel worthy to be crucified in the same manner that Jesus was. And so, according to tradition, the cross was turned upside down and Peter was crucified upside down, which is actually why, historically, the upside down cross was known as Peter's cross. And that's our story for today, children. I hope you've enjoyed this story. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.